Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to the business session 2 of Minerals and Mining E-Conclave, Minerals Mining and Metals E-Conclave Day 1. We have Experts Roundtable India's 2020 Net Zero Pledge, what it implies for the future of coal industry in the country. We have very eminent speakers with us, Mr. N.C. Jha, Managing Partner, Prolific Coal Consortium and former CMD of Coal India Limited, Mr. Rakesh Kumar, Chairman and MD, NLC India Limited, Mr. Sunil Chaturvedi, Chairman and MD, Gainwell Commercials Private Limited, Mr. Binay Dayal, Director Technical, Coal India Limited, and the session would be moderated by Mr. P.S. Bhattacharya, Chairman, Minerals and Mining Committee, Bengal Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and former Chairman of Coal India. With this, I'll hand it over to Mr. Bhattacharya to take the session forward from here. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Arnav. I think this is one of the very most interesting sessions. We expect it to turn out like that. As you might have heard in the morning session, Mr. Anil Jain, Secretary Coal, he mentioned that this particular pledge to have net zero in 2070, as opposed to 2050 for most countries and 2060 for China, actually gives a little more handle to India. We get about 10 to 20 years more time to do the transition. So as a result, in fact, he was very elaborately explaining that the interest in the new bids of auction for coal blocks have remarkably increased, because if closing by 30 years and closing by 50 years is very different from a business perspective. So that is what has happened. And so the future trajectory of coal, had it been 2050, would have been something. But for 2070, it will be something else. And all of us know that India will have to depend on coal for a few more decades. Now, to shorten it artificially would mean a huge social cost or economic cost. We really can't pitch up our renewables to an extent where we meet most of the demand from renewables, because India today is at a fairly low level of per capita power consumption in the world. And good afternoon, Mr. Dayal. It has to actually increase much faster than the other countries. Like, for example, we are at somewhere around 1200 to 1300 units per person per year. And China is at 3000 plus. World average is 3000 plus. So we are far, far lower. And this has to increase. If it has to increase even to 2000, let us say by 2030, and that is important if India has to develop, then the incremental 800 units multiplied by 1.3 billion population is a huge additional requirement of power that cannot be met by renewables alone. So coal has to speed up, coal has to increase. And if coal has to increase, we have to open more mines, we have to open more facilities. And if there is a Damocles sword hanging on its head that you have to close down within a limited number of period, then that is definitely going to become a pain point. So that will actually reduce the enthusiasm of participants, private sector or even Coal India, to open more mines, open new mines. So that being the situation, I think this 2070 has actually been a very proactive, positive kind of statement, and the coal sector will have to look at that carefully. Having said that, the fact remains that as per the latest studies done by the Central Electricity Authority, it shows that in 2030, we shall be requiring more capacity, obviously much more capacity. And out of the additional capacity, a large chunk will come from renewables. Renewables are expected to go from 100 gigawatt to about 420 gigawatt. Solar being the more dominant one, 280 solar, 140 wind, something like that. But in that scenario also, coal-based power will have to grow by about 30%. That is the findings of CP, which means the current level of consumption is about 1 billion ton, close to 1 billion ton. From there, we need to go up to about 1.3 billion, looking at the needs for power sector. Then comes the need of the coal gasification, because that's a new area that's opening up. And the Prime Minister has announced 100 million ton as the target for 2030. If we add that 100 million, 1300 becomes 1400. In today's consumption, out of the 1 billion, close to 1 billion, 970, 980 million tons that we consume, we produce only 750. we are importing 215 to 220 million tons of coal. And out of that, not all coal is required to be imported. I mean, we have that kind of coal. Maybe the coking coal, metallurgical coal, etc., very high grade coal. In some industries, you take away about 100 million tons. That's okay. But at least 100 million tons can be substituted. So that is the other thing. So 1,500 million tons of production is something that should happen. I mean, 500 million tons more than what we are doing today. I mean, these are all guesstimates. I'm not talking about government numbers. Government numbers would be different. But this is something which looks like a reasonable kind of a proposition. Now, how to reach that kind of a level without creating too much of something? Because if we just start talking about 1 billion to 1.5 billion ton, you have to face a lot of flack from everybody, including our own environmentalists and the world at large, because everybody wants India to reduce or rather give up coal production at the earliest. We have seen this debate of phase down and phase out. There is strong debate, and strong emotive things that came out of it. So we need to do coal mining differently. We can definitely expand. But the point remains that we need to do it differently so that the carbon footprint, the biodiversity aspects, these have to be properly looked into. The social and economic, the social and environmental aspects, these have to be looked into in more detail, in a more granular manner. And that will actually enable us to sustain a higher level of production for a longer period of time. I think this to my mind is likely to be the future course. But we have absolutely a fantastic, eminent panel of experts. And I would like to turn to our experts in the panel to talk about their perception on the particular subject, the future of coal in India under the situation where we are pledging to become a net zero country by 2070. So let me start with Mr. N.C. Jha. He is a very veteran person in mining, a very eminent mining engineer in his own right. So Mr. Jha, will you please join in?
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm not a veteran, but then, yes, I have some interest in mining, and so I keep on put up onto my screen. Okay. Oh, is somebody else sharing the screen? I would like to speak through some of my slides. So I'm trying to share my screen. Is it visible?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Can you make it full screen?
Yeah, I'll make it full screen. There's something coming. Okay. Oh, is it visible now?
Yeah, it's
Full
visible.
screen? Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. Good afternoon to all the panelists and the e-conclave attendees. The subject in this session is India's 270 net zero pledge, what it implies for the future of coal industry in the country. So I would like to, before I proceed further, it would be prudent to understand what is meant by net zero. As I was listening to the Secretary Coal this morning, he said that many people have the notion that net zero means no carbon addition. So I would like to take you through what is net zero and what has been the pledges made before the 26th Conference of Parties by our Honorable Prime Minister at Glasgow. Greenhouse gases like carbon dioxide are released when we burn oil, gas, coal, biomass, etc. from our homes and factories and in the transport industry. And methane is produced through farming and landfill. These gases cause global warming by trapping the sun's energy. Net zero means not adding to the amount of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. Net zero emissions will be achieved when all GHG emissions released by the human activities are counterbalanced by removing GHGs from the atmosphere in a process known as carbon removal. Now, achieving net zero means reducing emissions as much as possible, as well as balancing out any that remain by removing an equivalent amount. The idea of net zero was promoted in 2018 special report from the IPCC, which demanded that the countries bring greenhouse gas emissions to net zero by 2050 to keep the global warming to within 1.5 degrees Celsius of pre-industrial levels. The target for achieving this was kept as year 2050, while the target for limiting it to 2 degrees Celsius was kept as 2100, the year 2100. And there's a little graph which shows what are the different timelines in which we have to meet the net zero carbon dioxide and net zero GHGs in the two scenarios. The Honorable Prime Minister of India, during his speech at COP26, made the following pledges on India's decarbonization roadmap. Now, this is very important. We have to understand each one separately. The first one was increase non-fossil energy capacity to 500 gigawatt by 2030 and meet 50% of the energy requirement from renewable sources. That means 50%, that is equivalent to 500 gigawatt, will be from fossil fuels. Then the third point is reduce the total projected carbon emissions by 1 billion ton by 2030. Reduce the carbon intensity of the economy by less than 45% and achieve net zero, finally, of carbon by 2070. Now, of these 5 pledges, the first 2 relate to building up the capacity of renewable energy to 500 gigawatt by 2030, being 50% of the total India's energy requirement by that time. This indicates that the total energy from fossil fuel would be around 500 gigawatt by 2030, meaning thereby that coal, being the major contributor of energy intensity amongst the fossil fuels, its share in quantum as energy provider will increase at least up to 2030. But in percentage terms, is bound to reduce from the current level of 55% in the total energy, primary energy basket. Now, this shows a green light for coal in future terms. But in my opinion, the major concern for the coal sector lies in pledge number 3, which requires the country to reduce the total projected carbon emission by 1 billion ton by 2030. Now, this is a radical pledge as it promises an absolute reduction in carbon dioxide emission by 2030. While the projected CO2 emissions by 2030 is not known, its reduction by 1 billion ton will mean reduction of coal usage or the fossil fuel usage by about 580 to 590 million ton from the projected level by that time. Now, this is a serious threat, in my opinion, on usage of coal as energy provider. The last pledge about achieving net zero gives us ample time to adhere to it. It also provides the scope for emitting or generating CO2 and making arrangement for sequestering it through trees and artificial processes to keep it at net zero level. Now let us look at what are the CO2 emissions in India, what it has been for the last 30 years by fuel type. We can see that coal is responsible for nearly 2/3 of the total carbon dioxide generated. In 2020, the total amount of CO2 generated through coal was something between 1.65 to 1.7 billion tons. The rest one is from oil and natural gas and others. It has risen steeply over last 30 years. If you look at the carbon dioxide emission, what it was in 2010 and what it is in 2020, we find that India is producing about 1/4 of what China produces as carbon emission, and nearly half of the United States. The figure for European Union is not here, but I understand European Union is the third, taken all countries together, and India ranks fourth in the group wise. Now, what are the future paths set in the COP26 agreement? On emissions, it says the countries will next meet next year to further look at the place and how it works. Now, this is to try to keep the temperature rise within 1.5 degrees Celsius, which scientists say is required to prevent a climate catastrophe. Now, current place, if it is met, will only limit the global warming to about 2.4 degrees Celsius. On coal, the conference said for the first time that there was an explicit plan to reduce use of coal, which is responsible for 50% of the annual CO2 emissions. However, countries only agreed on a weaker commitment to phase down rather than phase out coal after a late intervention by China and India. The conference also focused on phasing out the inefficient subsidies to fossil fuels. Many of the countries subsidize the fossil fuel, particularly in oil and gas and electricity, and the world leaders agreed to phase out inefficient subsidies. The agreement called for all countries to accelerate the phasing out of inefficient subsidies for fossil fuel, but no firm date has been set. Since the conference will be meeting every year, at least next year it will be meeting, so there may be a review on this. All countries in G7, representing the world's largest advanced economies, have previously committed to phase out inefficient fossil fuel subsidies by 2025. If you look at this chart, it gives the idea of how much subsidies are provided by the governments of different countries to support fossil fuel industry. We can see that India supports by a subsidy of something like $2.4 billion every year. Iran tops the most. The idea of focusing on
If I may just intervene for a second, none of the countries are having any subsidy for coal. That is what it comes from.
No, that's true. None of the countries are having any subsidy for coal. The subsidies are only in the areas of gas, electricity, and oil. And in fact, coal is overloaded. In India, it is heavily taxed. It is taxed as much as the base price of coal.
But is electricity, the coal-based electricity, also a part of the sector which is getting subsidies?
Yes. Electricity is in general, and largely electricity is produced in India
could be coal-based electricity also.
By coal-based. So indirectly, it is also getting subsidy. But electricity being a separate area, the idea of these countries is that if you have inefficient subsidies, then people are not serious on its consumption and they burn more. So if you remove these subsidies, then there will be more of control on carbon emission. So that's the basic idea.
Right.
Now here comes the annual coal consumption in India. I tried to pick up figures for imported coal, coal supplied by the different producers of coal within the country, then lignite production, and put all together, you can see that the coal consumption in India has been increasing steadily until 2018-19. After that, for the past 2 years, it has slightly reduced. And if you see the total coal consumption in the country for the last 4 years is somewhere between 950 to 1,000 or 1,018 million tons. So it's not picking up. And some people say that it's because of the COVID effect, but the COVID effect came only after March 20. So one figure of 2021 could be, I mean, the fall in 2021 could be assigned to COVID. But what about the previous years? The consumption has fallen, not only in coal, but also in the lignite sector. And the imported coal has increased. This year, of course, as I understand from the different deliberations, the domestic coal supply has increased, but the imported coal component has drastically reduced. So if you take the total coal consumption, because the carbon is generated from total coal uses, I think in the current fiscal also, that is 2021, the figure of total consumption will not be more than what was in 1920 or maybe 1819. It might slightly increase compared to the previous. So this is an indication how coal is being used and what has been the past performance of coal usage. So looking at the future projection of coal-based energy plan for India, we have different estimates. There is one draft National Energy Policy of 2017, which has not yet been finalized. This was published by the NITI Aayog, and it said that the coal-based power generation would increase to about 330 to 441 gigawatt by 2040. And this would translate into coal demand of 1.1 to 1.4 billion tons annually. Now, as per this estimate, at high rates of coal demand, the domestic coal supplies may reach a plateau by 2035. But we have another estimate from the Coal Vision Document 2030 of Ministry of Coal, which says that by 2030, the estimated coal demand will be 1,300 to 1,900 million ton, depending on the growth scenario. Since there are many uncertainties in the growth scenario, so are the estimates of coal. Now, National Electricity Policy 2021, which has been recently published, sometimes in April or July, also highlights the role of coal in electricity generation. On thermal generation, it clarifies that while India is committed to add more capacities through non-fossil sources of generation, coal-based generation capacity may still be required to be added in the country, as it continues to be the cheapest source of generation. So this cheapest source, I will stress here, it is in spite of heavy taxation on coal. The policy requires all future coal-based plants to be only of supercritical or ultra supercritical or other more efficient technology. I was browsing through some of the figures of how the power plants are consuming coal. The per unit coal consumption, which is specific coal consumption, varies from 0.4 kg to 1.1 kg per unit. So there is a need to have supercritical and ultra supercritical technology to have minimum specific consumption of coal in the power sector, because power sector is the main driver of coal use. Whatever may be the projected coal demand by 2030, the pledge of reducing the total projected carbon emission by 1 billion ton by 2030 would mean a substantial reduction in coal usage by that time, if the pledge is met. That means, in my earlier slides, I have said that it is equivalent to 1 billion ton of carbon reduction is equivalent to nearly 590 million tons of coal equivalent usage. Now, even if the efforts are made in the other fossil fuel usage reduction, coal being the largest in the energy sector will have a substantial impact if this particular pledge of the COP26 is to be met. There have been several initiatives in the carbon capture and storage in India. The greenhouse gas emission footprint of coal-fired power stations, power generation could be reduced by carbon capture, utilization and storage. And this is a subject which I remember when I was in Coal India, we were still having a lot of discussion on this. The country has created a program for CCS and is promoting it through Mission Innovation. As part of Mission Innovation, initiation has been made for funding opportunity in the Carbon Capture Innovation Challenge for joint R&D in the field of CO2 capture, separation, storage, and CO2 value-added products to be taken up jointly by Department of Biotechnology and Department of Science and Technology with member countries of Mission Innovation. Now, some of the oil and gas companies like ONGC are investigating the potential for CO2-based enhanced oil recovery, and NTPC is interested in CCS. In 2007, the Department of Science and Technology initiated a national program of research into carbon sequestration, that is carbon capture and storage. R&D in CCS is being pursued by CSIR laboratories and academic institutions under the program. Large areas of our subcontinent may not be suitable for onshore CO2 storage due to high seismic activity and propulsion intensity. And any CO2 storage activity would need to protect subsurface aquifers, which are vital source of groundwater for agriculture. Now, this indicates that there are red areas in the field of carbon capture storage. Which is going on, it will still to store the captured CO2. The country's national determined contribution under the Paris Agreement and further improved in COP26 meeting sets out plans to reduce the emissions intensity of the economy by 45% by 2030, which was earlier 35%. This has now been increased to 45% in the COP26 pledge. To reach 50% of the power generation capacity from non-fossil fuels by 2030, as we discussed earlier, and to create an additional carbon sink of 2.5 to 3 billion tons of CO2 equivalent through additional forest and tree cover. So the country has made plans for this. And when we looked at the NASA Earth Observatory figures, it also indicates that India is greening. Although there have been replanting initiatives in the southern parts, the northeastern region has lost forest cover in recent times. With an aim to plant enough trees by 2030, it may be possible to absorb additional 2.5 to 3 billion tons of CO2 from the atmosphere. Now, this is a chart which I could pick up from one of the NASA Earth Observatory publications. Now we can see here that the western part, half of the country, is fully greened. Northeastern has been deforested to a great extent. The southern part, which was earlier not so well planted, the plantation has increased. And this gives us a hope that if extensive planting is done in India, that will be a big that different estimates show different amount of coal requirement for the future. Among different government departments also, there is no unanimity on the coal usage estimates for future. The world pressure for making all countries carbon neutral between 2050 and 2070 puts a huge challenge on coal and other fossil fuel uses to continue for long at the same pace as in the past. While in the near future terms, the requirement of coal may increase, in the longer term, it all depends on the progress made in carbon capture, storage, and its utilization, and the extent of greening the country through massive planting. The immediate task is to reduce the total projected carbon emissions by 1 billion tons by 2030. This would mean a reduction of fossil fuel usage by about 590 million tons of coal equivalent from the projected usage of 1.9 billion tons with best case scenario as per the Coal Vision Document 2030. Now, 50 years time is too long a period to forecast. In the past 50 years, we have seen coal usage rising from 70 million tons to a little more than 1,000 million tons annually. Maybe with changing climatic conditions, the process starts getting reversed after 2030. Some symptoms have already been seen in the last 2 years. Thank you for your patience. I have concluded.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Jha. It was a very substantive and a very thoughtful presentation. I think lots of points have come out. The moot point is that 1 billion ton of carbon dioxide emission has to be reduced, which is equivalent to 590 million tons of coal, as you say. And at the same time, the coal production and consumption will go up, but we should confine it to more efficient units, try to phase out inefficient units which are consuming more than a certain normative level of coal usage. And we should also bring in carbon capture, utilization, and storage in a big way, so that we ultimately the net effect would be achieving this pledge of 1 billion ton emission. One confusion that remains is this 50% of non-fossil capacity. Is it capacity or is it generation? If it is capacity, it's a very easy task because we are already at 40%. That's what a recent news item said. But if it is of total generation, then that's a different ballgame altogether. So I'm not very clear in my mind when you say 500 gigawatt non-fossil capacity and 50% of total generation, are the two things the same? Do they really match? So that is something to be seen. Anyway, let us turn to our next speaker, Mr. Rakesh Kumar. Are you there?
Yeah,
you're there. Very much, very much. So since you said that you are going to, you're going to talk and not present. So maybe you take the floor.
Thank you very much. Very good afternoon to all of you, respected Partha Bhattacharya Sahab and respected panelists and all the participants who have joined on this e-conclave. Thank you very much for the opportunity. It's definitely a prestigious platform and we feel privileged. First of all, I just wanted to mention my view that this 500 gigawatt of non-fossil electricity capacity is different from generation of half of all energy requirement from renewable. 500 gigawatt of renewable is a capacity, at least that much we should have. And if it requires to have more to meet the 50% of the requirement, we may have to ramp up renewable energy projects further. So very nice lucid presentation by Jha Sahab, gave very beautifully all the aspects of this topic nicely. And when we talk about net zero emissions by 2070, first of all, the this pledge is a conditional pledge. Our Honorable Prime Minister has used this opportunity to elongate to 2070. Number two, he has also requested developing, on behalf of developing nations, urged the developed nations to deliver on their promise of climate financing, because it requires huge financing. And also, he has mentioned the technology transfer at very affordable nations, because without technology transfer, renewable going in a big way will be difficult. And but this pledge has set the target for the country, and it is going to work for the betterment of coal sector, in my view, because once a goal is set, then the pressure to use coal as much as possible for fueling the economy is very much there, and all efficiency will come. Lot of technology improvements, cost control, and efficient ways of using coal in power sector as well as other than power sector also. So we are in coal sector already, planning to contribute to this goal for the last few years by adopting clean coal technologies, by focusing on smart logistics, and we are also trying to. Coal companies are trying to fund and take up projects also side by side. We are also focusing on afforestation area, afforestation of the mining, reclaiming of the mined out land, and we are also focusing on first mile connectivity. And in a big way, we are thinking of diversifying into methanol production projects, and I feel now maybe some efforts will be very soon on gray hydrogen also. So in addition to this, we are targeting energy efficiency measures so as to reduce our emissions, reduce our cost, and we become more efficient. We are also adopting environmental friendly mining practices, be it dust suppression technologies and use of electricity or LNG in our equipments. And of course, all these measures are definitely going to contribute much towards this goal, commitment, our country's commitment to this goal. And this, you're right that 50 years is a long period, and we can strategize if the thermal power capacities are added now, so that fits into this goal. Minimum 25 years we take for the plant life, and we can extend the life by taking up LEP and other measures. But here I want to share one more aspect, that coal industry is also going to face a challenge of competing with cost. Renewable energy, once it is going to be the 50% of the energy requirement, and as we know that renewable energy cost is going down, a sharp declining trend we have witnessed in India. It has pierced the benchmark of 2 rupees also, and hybrids are now available at 2 rupees 70 paise, 30 paise, 50 paise. So this will compel the power generation based on coal and lignite to lower down the PLF, because it will not be able to compete when renewable projects are delivering. So then underutilization of these power assets will definitely enhance the cost of production of coal-based or lignite-based power. It has to be efficient, cost-effective. It has to compete. Number two, when we are targeting for clean coal technologies, environmental friendly mining practices, there is a cost to it. That will also be loaded. And definitely coal companies have to become more efficient in terms of optimizing the cost. This is one aspect I wanted to bring on this platform from my side. Then there will be a shift of coal being used for power generation, from power generation to methanol or even hydrogen. I think this can also contribute in a big way to address the environmental issue, but there we have to be cautious on the competitiveness, because methanol is very competitively available from other countries, China, Iran, and a few more. Definitely that competition has to be met, and there also we have to work on generation of these methanol and hydrogen at very, very competitive rates. I just wanted to share a humble effort by our company also. Our growth strategy at NLC is also aligned with these goals, and that's why we have become the first CPSU to have crossed the 1 gigawatt solar energy in India, and we have recently participated in competitive bidding of SECI and IREDA, and won two solar projects, hybrid project also. We are aggressive on entering into renewable, and moreover, in addition to these renewable energy projects, we are having our growth strategy by setting up pithead power plants, which will be cost effective, which will align to this strategy. We are also focusing on afforestation and reclaiming of land in a big way, and we are trying to use Israeli technology of agriculture to revive the fertility of the land, and in the time to come, this revival of the fertility and getting the land back will offer huge opportunity for land acquisition in future, for employment opportunities for the land affected people, and this can also result into reduction in the cost of coal and lignite in the time to come. And with this, I thank once again for the opportunity provided. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Rakesh Kumarji, for sharing your thoughts on the diverse issues. And one point you very clearly made is all pledges that India has made in COP26 is somewhat conditional to $1 trillion climate financing by the developed countries. So, I mean, that is one leeway we have. But thank you so much. Thanks for all the nice points that you have brought in. So we have two more speakers now. And between them, I would urge both or either of them to actually focus somewhat on underground mining, because somewhere we seem to be losing track on that. I mean, we have not spoken about underground mining in recent past, because if environmental friendly mining has to come, I think we need to really rethink about underground mining. And the fact that more than 20% of resources lie below 300 meters, which can be accessed only through underground mining, is still a point to ponder. And since we have 50 years of coal mining left, maybe underground mining can make it more sustainable. But at the same time, we have to make it mechanized. We have to make it at least cost. I mean, cost optimization is a factor there. But what can we think of doing in underground mining should be one of the aspects that can be dealt. And more than Mr. Binay Dayal, Mr. Sunil Chaturvedi, I can't think of anybody else dealing with this subject. So let me go to Mr. Dayal for his presentation. Dayal sir, you are on mute.
Am I audible?
Yes, very much.
So, very good evening, my respected panelists and Bhattacharya sir, respected Bhattacharya sir, Jha sir, and Chaturvedi sir, and all the attendees, and Rakesh ji, of course, in the NLC, and all the attendees of the e-conclave, and thank you for giving me this opportunity. I have been hearing to NC Jha sir presentation and Rakesh sir deliberation. So, so I was believing this 1 year back, and we had planned for the diversification of the Coal India diversifying into different areas and all that. And we are going very seriously on that count. But this coal shortage happened, and we were, and commitment from the Coal India was given for meeting the energy security of the country's security, meeting the country energy security, and as well not allowing any coal shortage in the power plant. So that reflects still the importance of the coal, and nevertheless, the COP26 commitment that is called Panchamrit, that has been well deliberated by Jha Sahab. So reaching for a non-fossil fuel energy capacity 500 gigawatt by 2030, and fulfilling the 50% energy requirement via renewable energy by 2030. And the most the affecting part is the reducing CO2 emission by the 1 billion tons by 2030. That would impact, because if you have to reduce the CO2 emission by 1 billion tons, is that almost 1/3 that is coming. 1/3 will be carbon, and maybe at least 30% will be reduction in coal. So the rough figure was given was 500 or 590 coal equivalent. So all these are, we are, in fact, we want to address the climate change position also. At the same time, the developing countries, they are having the different priorities. Coal is abundantly available, and the, of course, the cheap will still be, so many taxes are there. In fact, Coal India is paying heavy taxes, and more than 500 billion rupees in taxes every year you are paying. Still, coal remains the cheapest option for poor as a fuel option. Definitely, the CO2 emission, addressing the climate change issues is one thing, but other thing is sustainable mining and the responsible mining, taking care of the environmental, Mother Nature, Earth, and at the same time focusing on the energy efficient way of mining will be the way of our SDC, Sustainable Development Commitment. In fact, the thermal, we are still to think of that. Our 70% generation is coming from thermal power. 70%, 60% almost. Hydropower is 12%, nuclear is 2%, and renewable share is something around 24%. So increasing it to renewable to 50% share will be 50% energy requirement through renewable means will require a very pragmatic, very challenging by 2030 will be very challenging task, because we are still to come with the carbon storage. And we are the net importer of all the panels and all the carbon, all the cells. And while discussing the diversification and all that, we have identified some of these areas becoming going through. We have advanced into solar also, but just like Newly Lignite has crossed 1 gigawatt capacity, we've also won the. We have also lined up with 300 megawatt solar power capacity. We have generated that in Coal India also, and in Gujarat also. And we have further commitment for the wafer, cell and module. We are looking for that plan as a CIL diversification plan. That country is in need of that, most of the imported. And we have surveyed many of the states like Andhra Pradesh, Odisha, Gujarat and all, those will be giving. And we applied for the PLI also from MNRI, and we have been shortlisted also. Maybe when the PLI is offered, so we'll be able to establish the wafer, the cell and module thing. So we are committed towards our renewable emphasis, but at the same time, we are the task that Coal India, as a largest coal producer and in the country, we have to see the country energy security also. As CMD and Newly Lignites mentioned that we are going as a part of sustainable way, in a big way, for plantation. In fact, to quote that, Coal India has planted in 5 years more than 94 lakhs of sampling, and further we are going to intensify it in the 5 years to almost we are doubling it. Similarly, we have created a lot of carbon sink. We have also developed about 35 new eco parks, tourism sites, and we are going in the big way in the sustainable mining. And FMC projects also, we are reducing the coal transport and all that. We are also going for the energy efficient measures like the efficient engines and the replacing all the LED lights, like normal lights with LED lights and efficient ACs, pumps, water heater, and all these sort of energy efficiency measures building going to take place. Not only this, we are part of also initiative. We are taking an initiative for introduction of techno-economical feasibility as a study for the introduction of dual fuel diesel LNG operation in existing dumpers, and we are carrying out a pilot project also, so that diesel can be replaced through LNG. We are committed to reduce the environment footprint in addressing climate change and promoting cleaner use of coal in longer run. We are also promoting initiative for the cleaner and alternative use of coal through surface coal gasification route. The conversion from coal to syngas and subsequently into chemicals we have taken up through our Talcher fertilizer plant. There is one way we have tied up with One Engineering and their product technology for gasifying the Talcher coal into syngas, and particularly for the production of urea. And there is we have also other production of other chemicals also through syngases. We are aware of the hydrogen mission that the PM has given, and we are thinking of the production of that we'll call the grey hydrogen through syngases. So maybe if the cost economics are there, so it will be there. We're also promoting some of the companies who are keen to produce ethanol from the carbon from the coal. good quality coal, of course, they are requiring through bacterial processes. So we are encouraging, we are giving them, facilitating them in the eastern coalfield areas where they will establish the plant and we will provide them with the coal from the Sonpur Bajari. Bhattacharya Sahab has asked me to actually underground mining, the role of underground mining as a sustainable way of here. And but most of our resources, 60% almost, are in the range of 300 meter. And we are a good quantity of coal, and those are open castable. And with the time, which was previously thought that 150 meter was the open castable coal, then it became 200, then now 300. Now, and this in the near future, maybe 350 will be maybe open castable plant in that area. But beyond 300 meter, beyond 400 meter, really it is difficult open cast mining. So we have some of the areas, properties area that we have planned out for the large capacity underground mining. In some of the CCL areas, after Pipavav exhaustion, we are thinking of Pipavav underground, Patratu also. And being a drift origin coal, the largest stretch of coal free of fault is very difficult to get. So PSLW and long-wall application becomes difficult. But at the same time, we have developed a continuous miner technology which is largely available, and we have sufficient large number of parties also participating to that. And in the last 2-3 years, we have seen that there is enough competition, and the coal winning values bid have stabilized to level of 1100 rupees. So we have the different dimension that we have to address as a Coal India, meeting the energy security of the nation also. At the same time, be prepared for the energy transition by 2070, and as well as to reach 1 billion target that is looming large on us by 2034-25. That we'll be discussing in 2-3 days also, and a lot of activities are going on this aspect also, the evacuation aspect and all aspects. So but a lot of focus we are now giving on sustainable way of mining, on reclamation, on graining of the overburden dumps, and but still I feel that alternative energy source only can start making contribution when the improvement in battery storage capacity is there. In fact, many of our experience of the even for the solar plant, we are heavily dependent on China. All the modules, which are coming from China. When China, the only source other is some South Korean and German companies are there. So we don't have any in-house or in India capacity for manufacturing of this solar wafers. So better we develop it. It will be good for the country. Even for the solar battery storage capacity, we are not lithium battery, or not rich in lithium minerals. So we have to look for in some other country. So we are trying for that also. But we are as a CIL, we have been also committed to balance between these two aspects. That we are aware of that. Yesterday, one day back, the American consulate was visited here. She was very categorical that what is the plan of Coal India and how we are addressing the transition things. And she has also handed over the 2 leaflets of 2 pages that what the US government is thinking of about the coal. It was completely depressing thing to see that they have they have almost stopped the funding for all the equipment going for the coal and all the correlated and fossil fuel generation activities. So a lot of even what we are facing difficulty in procuring the HMM also because the party is not able to get the BZ from the European banks or even Australian banks or even American banks purpose because they have banker has taken a condition that they will not fund for any activity relating to coal or relating to coal activities, coal-fired power generation. So in this difficult balancing situation, we are trying to maintain balance, trying to address the security also, as well as trying to become a I will not say the net zero company, but we have committed to install a 3,000 megawatt of solar power projects by in the next 2-3 years, and as well as create a huge carbon sink by way of planting, doubling our plantation activity, and the other alternate utilization of coal taking a big way. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Dayal. It was a good exposition of the overview of what Coal India is trying to do in very many areas. And it's really a delight to see that Coal India is alive to all the issues that the energy sector and the coal sector is facing and trying to take positions to sort of balance that, sort of a balanced view you are taking on all matters. We now turn to our last speaker, Mr. Sunil Chaturvedi, and he comes from a very different kind of background. He was an IAS at one point of time. Then he moved into equipment. He has been working intimately connected with mining in a different manner. So we'd like to hear from him, and then maybe we have some time. We have about 27 minutes. So if we can leave something like 5-10 minutes for a couple of thought-provoking ideas, we'll try to deal with that. One idea that comes to my mind is we are talking about 2070, we are talking about some relaxation, something, so coal will continue, etc., etc. But from Mr. Dayal's presentation, it appears that there could be some disruptive changes. Like he's getting difficulty in HEMM suppliers furnishing a bank guarantee. It's all very crude kind of difficult situations. So because of certain disruptions and because of the world gagging together against coal, I mean, if coal has to really go away faster, are we prepared for that? That is one question if we can all collectively address. And how to make coal sustain a longer period of time is one part of the problem. Other part is, with all our efforts, if there is a disruption that comes up, then are we ready to face that disruption and, sort of nullify the impact of the disruption on the energy scenario as well as on the lives and livelihoods of those who are dependent on coal. So over to you, Mr. Chaturvedi.
Thank you very much, sir. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure and delight to be talking to all of you and to be in the company of all of you. 3 of you represent, including Mr. Bhattacharya, 4 of you represent 2 of the best organizations India has produced in terms of securing energy sufficiency for India. And I'm really, truly blessed and privileged that we are talking together at this platform. I would begin by saying that it's ironic that every time we speak about sustainability or emission control, the argument almost turns against coal, as if coal is the only source of pollution. Nobody talks about what are the other arguments in favor of, or what are the other methodologies, ways in which emissions could be reduced, optimized in the world. We are all aligned with the fact that the world needs to find itself into a safer, more sustainable ecosystem tomorrow. But that does not necessarily mean killing the coal forever. That's some in substance of the first argument that I would like to present before you. We have a few slides, some of which may appear to be repetitive. I would not like to repeat any of those numbers, after scholarly presentations by Mr. Jha, Mr. Rakesh Dayal, and Mr. Rakesh Kumar and Mr. Vinay Dayal. The second argument that I would like to put forward is that every time there is talk about conversation about coal, the world, especially arguments in India, they seem to be getting mixed up between the coal as an object or a source of energy and the manner in which the coal mining is getting done. And what is causing pollution, it all gets mixed up with coal. Without realizing that in this very country, approximately 3.5% of the country's population is directly or indirectly dependent on this energy. 40% of India's districts are touched by coal industry in one way or the other. Nobody makes this argument as to whether during winters a Chicago resident can keep the temperature at 22, 23 degrees centigrade rather than keeping it at 26, 27. But there is every blame to be given to a resident in Asansol as to why he or she is burning coal. It is also therefore linked to the question of global growth equity. And I'm not making a political argument. I just believe, this is what I've seen all my life in districts, that every time there is challenge of a macro level, people who are vulnerable, they get the shorter end of the battle, unfortunately. Now, having said that, I think as all of you have made an argument, I completely align that India has been taking a very pragmatic view about coal and its usage, and the need that India will continue to use some coal in times ahead. That's something which was very well articulated and initiated by Honorable Prime Minister at COP26 in Glasgow. But again, the fact that when COP26 at Glasgow was taking place, China and US, two of the big emitters of emission, they saw coal consumption going up. In fact, in the US last week, I was discussing with some people in the US, and they said after 2014, this is the first time that coal consumption in US for energy generation, not for steel plants, has actually gone up. And therefore, the argument that the world needs to face squarely is that every time there is a sustainability argument, do we need to really malign coal, or do we really need to put it down? It's not taking away from the fact that coal is a polluting source. It may be a cheaper source, but it's a polluting source, relatively polluting source. And we need to do something about, and many of us have discussed today at this platform the technologies which could be used for reducing the cascading effect, the disastrous effect of coal on human life. I would just show a few slides. The first one being that 2020 saw a decline in coal consumption, in the energy consumption worldwide. The energy requirement demand in the world came down. That came down, of course, the argument is very clear. That's partly because of the global pandemic that we have seen. But Mr. Jha brought out a very interesting slide in his presentation. He spoke about 2019 as also a year in which coal consumption slightly came down from, if I remember the number correctly, from about 18 million ton to about 1 billion ton. My own assessment, my own reading of the situation is that India unfortunately is seeing a decline in economic growth over the last 2-3 years. We all will recall that in 2019, after the elections, also liquidity problem was huge. It impacted GDP growth adversely, and therefore the energy demand relatively. So the first slide that I have is that while 2019 and 20, we have seen in India demand coming down, the world is also seen global demand for energy coming down by about 4% in 2020. Again, in 2021, the coal demand worldwide has gone up. So it just takes the sting away from the argument that coal is polluting fuel and world has better choices and we should move towards better choices. Unfortunately, it may be a little premature for us to conclude that world has much better choices. And those are all sustainable choices. course, this argument was made by in the opening statement by Mr. Bhattacharya, the moderator. India has, our understanding is about 1181 is the per capita kilowatt hour consumption. It's roughly 1/3 of the globe. And I go back to my argument, why somebody in Chicago or Denver would have a right to grow better than a person in Africa or in India or in Bangladesh or in Pakistan or any other country. There is a sense of global equity that needs to be attained while we are discussing climate. Every investment, even the energy investment during this period has declined. I think in India also we saw 15% decline in energy investment in 2020. So there is a challenge for all of us. As of now, our conclusion, our internal discussion in the company and in the larger society where I interact, we still feel that coal is the best alternative for India's per capita consumption to go up. We do not have choices. When we talk about alternatives, we always end up talking about solar. We have, obviously, because hydro, we are critically dependent on the entire water flow from China, from upper Himalayas. And therefore, the political vulnerability of hydro, in addition to every other consequence that stands there. We cannot have nuclear for at a very large scale, obviously, because of all that the world witnessed at Chernobyl and subsequently in Japan. So there is a limitation also in terms of cost. We don't have wind in this country, not too much, very little wind is there. Therefore, the choice falls on solar power plants. And solar, while the choice may be there as of now, India does not have the blessing of huge landmass like Canada would have, or China would have, or let's say US would have. We need to be mindful of the fact that land is also as a resource. There is a sense of equity and growth and development. Everything can't be put below a solar panel. And also a much bigger question, something which Mr. Dayal, I think, brought out. I would like to say at this stage, we have made easier choices in the world by taking polymetallic nodules from abundantly available regions in the country. Tomorrow, when the world faces a challenge in terms of these nodules not being available, the substances that go into manufacturing of solar panel, they are not available. And the only option, and the world is exploring those options, Canada and US, including the OEM with which we work very closely, Caterpillar, they are exploring the options of deep sea mining and picking up those millions of polymetallic modules which are lying on the surface of below the sea. Our assessment is coal consumption will double by 2040, but growth is going to be slower. So during 95-20, we have seen 202% growth, and between 20 and 40, we're likely to see 116% growth, which is moderating. India's desire is to moderate this growth, yes, while keeping the growth and equity considerations in mind. We also spoke about how much funding is needed, and I think Mr. Rakesh Kumar mentioned about India's demand for funding. There is a calculation which suggests that if India needs to meet its commitment, it needs $1.4 trillion by 2030. That's for the world community to consider and address as to how they will help India achieve these targets by creating those funding options. It's very good that Mr. Vinay Dayal spoke about all the financing constraints which are coming in coal. We feel that over a period of time, at least within India, the banking community will become more pragmatic. At this stage, I think we are still yet to overcome the waves of excitement which got created because of COP26. But I think slowly and gradually, things will settle down at a level where they would become more sustainable. Of course, this was the definition itself. Mr. Jha had made very scholarly presentation on the net zero, which is absolutely fair. I don't have to make any other point on that. I think Honorable Prime Minister has taken a very pragmatic view when he said that by 2070, we will become a net zero as a country. Of course, this third these out of this Panchamrit, the third Amrit that we are having, this Amrit, we'll have to see how much of this is feasible in real terms. 1 billion ton of carbon emission to be taken out by 2030. Of course, everybody has spoken about that. It's going to become a challenge. It is a very difficult situation that we face. As a company, as a corporate citizen in the country, while we remain completely aligned with the government's approach towards becoming more and more ecologically sustainable, and I would just like to invite all of you to please come and visit our Northern Indian facility, which is at Unnati in Greater Noida. Unnati was recently pronounced by the Global Green Building Council as the 7th greenest building in the world. It has some very outstanding features. This was covered by NDTV. So all we were saying as a company, as a corporate citizen, we do feel that when we are into coal mining, into underground coal mining, we are with Caterpillar and manufacture equipment which go into coal mining, we have the sense of responsibility towards the world that we need to give back, and replanting of trees, making our machines through recycled substances are all the plans that we have in store for us. But at this stage, we are deeply involved in innovations which go towards integrating renewable fuels with all that we do. We are working on with some of the partners on fuel cells. We are working on electric and hybrid powertrains. It's good that Mr. Binay Dayal spoke about the dual fuel kits. Yes, we are also working on that. And those, at this stage in India, we are doing trials on some of our Caterpillar dumpers. Hopefully, we'll be able to prove to the world in next few weeks' time that we have solution which could substantially reduce the emissions from the dumpers that our mining customer, including Coal India, is using. On batteries, there is a lot of distance that the world has to travel. I don't think we have reached anywhere close to a situation where batteries could become, could really store all the base load energy during the daytime, which is needed for countries like India. And then, of course, we are working, but nonetheless, we are wanting our equipment to come, as much as battery operated equipment to come into this country as feasible, as our effort to make India a more sustainable place in terms of pollution. And we are working on microgrids as well to make sure that multiple sources of energy are tapped to provide the energy security to India and Indian customers of ours. Certain things are already in work and some other are in development stage. The one on the left side, as I was saying, so we are at this stage introducing reciprocating engines that run on low carbon intensity. We are working on renewable fuels, including biodiesels, etc. We are working on worksite solutions that pair engine with solar and energy storage. So there are those modalities which are happening. We are using many of our newer machines which are coming into this country. They have electric drive dozers, loaders, trucks, and locomotives. Caterpillar locomotives also run in this country, and those ones are getting shifted towards more greenhouse gas emission targets, align with those, and burn more efficient way the fuel that they consume, and also the possibility whether we can have mix of fuels to burn that. Battery electric underground mining machines that eliminate engine emissions and reduce dust and heat. So this is happening already. They not only go into the coal mining, but also into zinc and copper mining elsewhere in the country, because emission targets are for everybody. I mean, they should not become a binary argument against coal, as I said right in the beginning. So therefore, some other areas also we need to do more work on that. Some of the things which are in development from our company's side and from we see some other OEMs working accordingly. Battery-powered mobile equipment like excavators and wheel loaders, etc., are coming into this country slowly and gradually. We've seen hybrid engine systems for heavy equipment that can run in electricity-only mode. We've also seen some work getting done in fuel cells. National Hydrogen Mission has been announced by the government, and we are very excited about how some of the locomotives and some other vehicles could be shifted towards hydrogen fuel cells. There are many technological evolutions which we are working on to make sure that the mining as a process becomes far more efficient and remains less polluted. So we are using on our equipment IoT sensors coupled with real-time data analytics. We have drones flying over equipment and capturing data and analyzing them real time to make sure that the equipment performance is the best, is the most optimum. We have machine learning modules where worker performance and historical data to measure, track, and address worker fatigue, etc. All that is taken care of. And the whole idea is that we do software-based asset utilization improvement. So we are working on all of these as we talk. These are not things, let's say, in the realm of theory. They are still on the ground in the country. We are working very clearly with Caterpillar and few other OEMs in the world to bring autonomous vehicles into India, including for underground mining operations. And that will make sure that your talent crunch that we currently face, especially in underground mining operations, that gets optimized to some extent. Mines are safer, they are more technologically driven. And it's important that we take this autonomy as a dialogue to the next level, where we use AI and machine learning and analytics, etc., integrate the entire thing into autonomous vehicle. We are seeing with a lot of interest the world moving towards deep sea mining. Now, that may not be an argument in favor of coal or relevant for coal, because we don't get coal, perhaps, to the best of my knowledge, at the depth at which world is now wanting to explore mining substances which could be relevant for the world. There are three types of deep seabed mineral resources that have become very interesting for the world. There are seafloor massive sulfides which are needed for the world. There are cobalt-rich ferromanganese crusts which have become very relevant for the world. And there are these polymetallic nodules. They were found 115. It's a question of choices humanity is making. All of these substances were found 150 years ago by the famous HMS Challenger expedition, which took place in 1872 and 1876. All these were discoveries of those times. Because we had cheaper coal on the surface of the earth, the whole world scratched it. Because we have coal going, let's say 200-300 meters, we are going there. When nothing exists, we will have to go into other areas, because it is not as if humanity will cease to have its demand met by some other substances, and mining will not be required. But these are all the choices that the world is making. We are looking with a lot of sense of excitement to important projects which are taking shape near Mexico Bay and one near Canada, where deep sea mining is going to take place. So deep sea mining could happen between 4 to 6 kilometers and could go up to 200 kilometers below the surface or below the water into deep sea. So the kind of machines which will be needed, kind of pressures they will need to take, kind of substances that would be used for manufacturing those machines, these are all objects of research at the moment. But come 2023, we are likely to see in Canadian region of the sea some deep sea mining efforts materializing. There are two projects, Newmont and Glencore.
Mining has propelled advancements of our societies for centuries. With our access to Quebec's legendary clean hydropower, we've always envisioned developing our world-class deposit with a carbon-neutral footprint. But to produce the greenest battery materials, you need to push innovation to the next level.
We're proud to partner with a company that supports our vision and wants to help build a better world. Soon enough, the graphite extracted with this technology might actually power its battery pack. Today, the electric revolution is taking another step forward thanks to a fleet of zero-emission machines.
Caterpillar is working on both these projects, and the object is that by 2050 we should become net zero. Gainwell, as a company, I'm very proud to say that we are committed to make this happen by 2035. As a company, we are wanting to optimize our footprint and become a net zero company by 2035. That has been our objective. That's just the last slide. Mining business for tomorrow, we believe that it has to be agile, customer-centric, innovative, and digital first, but also purpose-driven. We are also equally concerned about all the ESG requirements which are flowing through the boardrooms across the world. And the companies those who are not complying will suffer the consequences of banking community rejecting them, or the investors rejecting them, and shareholders rejecting them. We will nurture and develop talent which can have these sensitivities. We are committed to operationalize excellence and cost leadership in this area, especially in underground mining operation, which Mr. Jha mentioned about. Optimize capital allocation and delivering on growth opportunity. As a company, we want to be 100% water recycling company at all mines by 2025. The waste getting reduced by 2025, 50% of the waste getting reduced by 2025. We will use 10% of the parts which are remanufactured rather than fresh parts. And we will make sure that 50% reduction in recordable injury frequency takes place by that time frame. Thank you very, very much. I would just like to add maybe one more sentence about underground mining. Sometimes the argument is given that underground mining, oh my God, in India, it's very expensive. I think firstly, Mr. Dayal, thank you for bringing out that the prices have stabilized. All of us, those of us who are involved in underground mining, we believe it is safer, it's more sustainable. But India is utilizing this very little. We are still 6-7%, 8% underground mining. China against us was 90%, roughly 90% of underground mining versus surface operation. I think India has now attained that level of maturity, and some of the competitive companies, they've come into India, they are doing underground mining. It's possible to lean on underground mining from our perspective much more than we are doing today. And that would take India further towards the object of net zero by 2070. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Chaturvedi, for that excellent presentation. And it brings to focus the concern that the equipment suppliers and equipment manufacturers now have as to develop ways and means of making net zero a reality by making changes in the whole situation. I mean, we are coming to a close, but I would like to end on a small note. Mr. Jha and myself, we had the pleasure of visiting a particular open cast mine in Newcastle. And the name of the mine was Delhi Open Cast Mine. It's named after Delhi. It receives a lot of academic inputs, technical inputs for running in a very sustainable manner, environmental sustainable manner from the Newcastle University. The mine is not very small. It's about 2.5 million tons, that size of mine. But it has all kinds of eco-sensitive industries around it. I mean, there's a pharma industry. There are other industries which are very eco-sensitive, and they cannot tolerate dust. They cannot tolerate sound. This kind of things. So the mine management, they themselves did a lot of engineering on the equipment. They made the dumpers soundproof. They made the excavators have some water reservoir on the top of it, from where it comes through a nozzle at the point of when the excavator starts, it immediately silences or rather reduces the dust. With all those things, it was a fantastic thing to see. There is no sound, no dust, mine is operating. So the very next year, I think Mr. Jha was also there in that visit. We went to Las Vegas, where we met all the big manufacturers, etc. So we told them, this is not our job. What the mine management is doing, it is your job. Why don't you do all these things and deliver environment-friendly equipment? So that was the point we started raising, and I remember Mr. Jha actually holding on to the tender documents till there is a commitment from the manufacturers on doing something substantive. And today, I think it has turned full circle. I mean, the equipment manufacturers themselves have realized what is the importance of producing environmental friendly kind of equipment. So it was a great thing to see this. So I think we have come to the end of the session with a lot of takeaways. And I'm quite sure, Arnav, you must have taken note of all the points, and you have a recording of the various sessions. So let us look at it peacefully and try to see what are the takeaways that we can put up as recommendations from this particular seminar. And thanks once again to all the very eminent speakers. Thanks, Mr. Jha, Mr. Chaturvedi, Mr. Rakesh Kumar, and Mr. Dayal for your excellent presentations. You have actually enriched the whole session. And thank you so much. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Sir,
Thank you very much. Thank you
I would
very much.
request all of you, all the speakers, to kindly share your presentations with us. If you can, if you could kindly email those with us. We'll be coming up with detailed proceedings in a couple of weeks. That will be very helpful for your detailed presentation.
Now you see, you have two of them can share their presentation, but the other who has spoken, that you
We have
to find
taken
out from
notes,
the
sir.
records. You have
Yes,
taken
sir.
notes, so you do it
Yes,
from
yes.
that.
We have taken notes, sir. We have
Because if
taken
you do,
notes.
if you do this kind of thing, next time you will not get it.
No, but I will share my presentation. I
Yeah,
definitely share.
And maybe Mr. Chaturvedi also, if you can share.
I'll send the presentation just now.
And we are so grateful to all of you. Special thank to Mr. N.C. Jha, again, Managing Partner, Prolific Coal Consortium and former CMD Coal India. Thank you, sir. Mr. Rakesh Kumar, Chairman and MD of NLC India. Despite of having your busy schedule, you have joined. It's really an honor. Mr. Sunil Chaturvedi, Chairman, MD, Gainwell Commercials Private Limited. We're thankful to you, sir, also. Mr. Binay Dayal, Director Technical Coal India Limited. You have joined, sir. It's an honor. Thank you. And of course, our special thanks to Mr. Partha Bhattacharya, the Chairman of the Minerals and Mining Committee, for conducting the session in a wonderful manner.
I
Thank
think
you.
you didn't give me an option.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank
With
you.
this, we end the business session 2. Please stay tuned. We'll be coming back exactly at 4:40 p.m. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much.